Today we're going to be making a 3D gingerbread house. Hi guys, this is Debbie with Debbie J's Crafting Corner. Today's video is part of the 20 DIY Christmas Home Decor Ideas Hub. I'm going to be making a 3D gingerbread house using a honeybee stamps die set for making a house-shaped card. I'm going to admit I had a little trouble getting started on this project and kept putting it off because, well, I really don't make much home decor type of items, and the one that I think it was the last thing on the list when I agreed to do this hop, and I love the folks that do this hop, was a gingerbread house. And I thought, well, I could probably do something like that. Now, that was a couple of months ago. So I've been struggling with how to do this without actually baking. So the first part you have to think about is how are you going to create this 3D piece? And I went back and forth between a couple of different house dies that I got, and I thought, you know, there's a way to do like a pop-up box, so maybe I could do that. So I've cut out 4 of the basic house shapes from the honeybee house builder die set, and then I am also creating the little flaps where you would assemble it. Now to do this, the scoring that I did on the flat part, the supports, I guess, of the house was about 1/4 inch, and then I went a little further on the ones for the roof, so that was, I think, about 1/2 inch. Now I'm just folding those in, so what we're going to have is a large pop-up box. So that's how the bottom portion is going to be put together. And I did cut a little wedge between the roof and the base. I don't want to be quite as bulky right there. I'm also scoring between the house and the roof section so that it's a little bit easier to work with. Now I'm going to start gluing a couple pieces together. Now the parts that I did the trimming and scoring on, I did that on 2 pieces because that's going to be the sides of my house. So first I am going to line up the bottom of the base part, line that up with that little tab that I cut, and hold it together so it can adhere well while I get the next part situated. So I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm gluing the base parts together. So I'm not doing anything with the roof yet. So don't worry about that part. I'm just doing the base. So at this point, I've adhered one of the front of the house to one of the sides, and then the back of the house to one of the sides. So now we've got the sides are going to be just a little bit smaller than the front. You can adjust this to whatever you choose to do. Now I'm going to adhere both of those pieces together. So we've got 2 of the pieces that are about twice as wide as what the house would have been. And now I'm going to adhere the bottom portions. Again, we're just doing like the supports of the base. I'm adhering those guys together, making sure everything is lined up flat. And now I can lay everything down flat on my counter, on my table, to get that last flap adhered down well. So now we have a little box, and the sides fold in just slightly to go along with the roof. So I'm taking one of my blending brushes and some brown distress ink and just basically adding some more dark toasted goodness around all of the edges of my different panels for my gingerbread. Now I like the way that the house is coming together, but you know what? I need something to act as a lid or a top for this because I don't really want it to just be a hole when it's sitting out somewhere. So I'm going to do some partial die cutting. So I scored an 8.5 by 5.5 inch panel at 2.5. That's going to be where the flap is. And then I did the partial die cutting so that it would create the shingles portion. Then I folded along that score line and trimmed off the excess. Then I did the same thing a second time. Now you might notice that the tops don't really overlap quite right, so I'm going to trim those to be about a 90-degree angle. I added some scattered straw distress ink to give the roof, I guess, a little bit of a yellowish tinge, so it looks more like buttercream icing instead of being just stark white. I hope you guys are being patient with me because, to be honest, building the base it's essential, but it's kind of most boring part of it. At this point, I am just gluing that house the shingles portion onto the roof part on the front and the back of my gingerbread house. Next comes a conundrum. How do I make it so everything can stay in place and still be able to store it easily in between the holidays? Well, I decided to go with some Velcro closures. Now these that I've got, I don't remember where I got them from, but I'll see if I can find a link for you guys, like over on Amazon, so you'll be able to easily find it. These are basically, they have got sticky on the back, and then they will hold everything together. And to attach them, I'm putting both of them, both the hook and the fluff side, I guess you'd call it, together, and then sticking them on wherever it is I need them to stick. And then I'm also doing the same thing on the roof flaps, parts that's over the top. Now it doesn't bring it completely flush on one side, but you know what? This is paper, and I'd say it is good enough. So next comes the fun part. Basically getting to do all the fun decorating. Now you'll see I've got a bunch of little gingerbread men and Santa sleigh and trees and all that good stuff here. Most of those are leftovers from last year. So I made another gingerbread house. That one was a gingerbread house card using the same dies and stamp set. So I'll go ahead and leave a link to that video here in case you guys want to see it too. But basically I'm doing the same kind of thing. There are pieces in the two die sets. There is the House Builder die set and the Gingerbread add-on die set from Honeybee that go work great together, and that's what I'm making. I've got that kind of fluffy piece in the background in white that's going to be the frosting, and then I've got these little pieces of gingerbread that fit perfectly in the window, so I think that's great. And then I realized, you know what? This paper, the brown paper, does not look like gingerbread, because the thing that I remembered how to do last year, or realized to do last year, was to add a little splatter. So I'm going to add some distress ink in some of the browns. I believe the ones that I used were walnut stain and brushed corduroy, just a couple different shades of brown. You can use what you have. And I'm using a fan brush for this. I also decided to, since I kind of don't really have a big enough acrylic block to do all the splattering that I was wanting to do, I'm just using one of my die cutting plates. I mean, they clean up fine, so there's not a problem. And I mixed a little water in with that ink, and then I'm just splattering some of that down. So you can see a little bit of some dots on there. Once it dries back some, it's going to look a lot better. I'm also adding some white wash and doing the same thing. And those little bits of splatter make so much difference on the gingerbread and makes it a lot more realistic. And once I got all the little bits for the door and the windows done, I realized, you know, I really need to add some to the gingerbread part on my house, which I should have done before I put the roof on. No worries, I'm going ahead and putting a paper towel down while I do the splatter on all of the gingerbread pieces. And since I wanted some texture on the roof too, I'm doing some of that mixture of wash and ink, so it's a lighter brown on the roof line as on the shingles too. So once the smaller pieces are dry, I can finish assembling the doors and the windows. Circle windows, I don't know why, but I don't seem to have a die for that, so I just punched out a circle that was about the right size. I think it was about a 1 inch, and cut it in half, and it worked perfect for that little arched window. To add a little dimension on the sides and everything of the box as I'm putting everything on and decorating it, I'm using some foam strips just cut to size. So I put some behind the door and then behind each of those little windows. So on the front and on the back, I'm doing them basically mirror image of each other. I'm using one of the doors and 2 of the little windows that have got the cross on there. I think that is just too cool. So I put those on the front and the back of the box. I also cut out a bunch of this little strip of, looks like snow or icing. I cut a bunch of those out because I thought that would be a perfect accent, and I'm just adding a few on each side. Looking back at it now though, I think I might actually add some more to it because I think that would look just too cool. Anyway, as it is, I'm doing that to that bottom roof line, the top roof line, and then one of this, basically the midsection on that roof section. I'm gonna do that to the front and to the back of this this little gingerbread house. Then I moved on to the side. I added a few of those little windows and a couple of the trees, and now I'm going to go ahead and add one of the little gingerbread people on there, and go ahead and pop that one up. Then I decided to add a little bit of that icing right to the peak of that that roof line on the sides too. I have to do more decorating. So for the front of the house, I'm adding a little wreath to the door and a bunch of those little gumdrops, and I've got a couple of candy canes over there too. I'm going to add all of that and pop them all up on some foam tape. Okay, the house is mostly decorated, but I just couldn't resist putting Santa's sleigh up on the roof. I decided that I didn't like that you could see the back, all of the ink shining through from where I colored it, so I am going to trace it out on some cardstock and fussy cut a backing for it. That looks so much better. So now I can glue that little sleigh to the roof. Okay, I have to say that this is probably the reason I don't do actual gingerbread houses, because I keep thinking of one more thing. So for the candy canes and the little candy on the door, I decided to add some glossy accents, and then I'm going to run and get some glitter. And I'm going to do the same thing on the windows and on the roof. It's just more and more glitter, right? That's going to finish up the card though. Once everything's dry, this thing is going to look just so adorable, and hopefully I won't think of anything else I need to add. Thank you so much for joining me for the 20 DIY Christmas Home Decor Ideas Hop. I hope you will take a look at all of the other hoppers in the hop, because I know they'll have some amazing projects for you to see. Here's another video I know you'll enjoy. Thank you again so much for joining me today. And remember, if I can make it, you can too. Talk to you next time.